Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is R.S. Raghu, and with me is Renuka, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. India's biggest drone festival, Bharat Drone Mahotsav 2022, kicks off in New Delhi on Friday. 70 exhibitors to display drones in two-day event. BRICS nations set up a joint commission on space cooperation to jointly build a virtual constellation of remote sensing satellites. Vice President of India M. Venkaiah Naidu to visit Gabon, Senegal and Qatar from 30th of May to 7th of June. World Bank Chief David Malpass warns that Russia-Ukraine conflict could cause a global recession as price of food, energy and fertilizers are increasing exponentially. World Economic Forum 2022 meet concludes. Next meet to be held between January 15th to 20th next year. Russian President Vladimir Putin says West will fail in its attempts to isolate Russia. In French Open, Indo-Dutch pair of Rohan Bopanna and Matej Milkov defeat A. Golubev and F. Martin in second round of men's doubles event, while duo of Sania Mirza and Ivan Dodig beat Laura Siegemund and Santiago Gonzalez in mixed doubles. And India trounced Indonesia 16-0 in last group match of Asia Cup Hockey in Jakarta. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate India's biggest drone festival, Bharat Drone Mahotsav 2022 in New Delhi on Friday. He will interact with farmer drone pilots. The Prime Minister will witness open-air drone demonstrations and interact with the representatives of startups in the Drone Exhibition Center. Drones can be used in search and rescue operations, disaster management, surveillance, traffic monitoring, weather monitoring, firefighting and dispatching medicines even in unreachable places. We have a report from our correspondent.
Bharat Drone Mahotsav will prove to be a game changer in making India a drone hub of the world by 2030. During this two-day Mahotsav, over 1,600 delegates will participate and more than 70 exhibitors will display drones at the exhibition. Several industry leaders, government officials, foreign diplomats, representatives from public sector units, private companies and drone startups will participate in the Mahotsav and deliberate upon India's civil aviation sector. Mahotsav will also witness virtual award presentation ceremony of drone pilot certificates, product launches, flying demonstrations, display of a made in India drone taxi prototype. The government has been working to establish a globally leading drone ecosystem in India, which will create the physical and digital infrastructure to support safe, efficient and secure operation of drones in the Indian airspace. Drones offers tremendous benefit to almost all sectors of the economy. These include agriculture, mining, infrastructure, surveillance, emergency response, transportation, geomapping, defense and law enforcement. Bhupendra Singh, AIR News, Delhi.
BRICS countries have established a joint commission on space cooperation which will jointly build a virtual constellation of remote sensing satellites. The China National Space Administration announced on Wednesday. The constellation is made up of existing satellites contributed by the space agencies of BRICS countries, including two from India. The satellites include the CBERS-4, jointly developed by Brazil and China, Russia's Canopus 5 type, India's ResourceSat-2 and 2A, as well as China's Gaofen 6 and Zhuan 302, Chinese state media reported. According to the report, leaders of the space agencies of BRICS countries, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, met virtually and discussed the implementation of the agreement on the cooperation on BRICS remote sensing satellite constellation. It was signed in August 2021 and enabled the space agencies of BRICS countries to jointly build a virtual constellation of remote sensing satellites that work as a data sharing mechanism.
Vice President of India, Mr. M. Venkaiah Naidu, will be on a three-nation tour to Gabon, Senegal and Qatar from 30th of May to 7th of June. He will be accompanied by a high-level delegation including Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Bharti Pawar, and three members of Parliament, Sushil Kumar Modi, Vijaypal Singh Tomar and P. Ravindranath. We have a report.
The External Affairs Ministry said this will be the first visit from India at the level of Vice President to all three countries. This will also be the first ever high-level visit from India to Gabon and to Senegal. This visit to Gabon and to Senegal will add momentum to India's engagement with Africa and also emphasize its commitment to the African continent. The visit to Qatar, as both sides are prepared to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations, will further enhance the bilateral ties. A number of bilateral documents are expected to be concluded during the visit to the three countries. During the first leg of his visit to Gabon from 30th of May to 1st of June, the Vice President will hold delegation-level talks with Prime Minister of Gabon, Rose Christian Osuka Raponda. He will also interact with the business community in Gabon and address the Indian diaspora. During the second leg of his visit to Senegal from 1st to 3rd of June, Mr. Naidu will also hold delegation-level talks with the President of Senegal, Macky Sall. He will meet President of the National Assembly, Mustafa Niasse, and other dignitaries. He will also attend a business roundtable and address the Indian community. During the third and last leg of his visit to Qatar from 4th to 7th of next month, the Vice President will hold delegation-level talks with Qatar's Deputy Amir, Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamad Al Thani, and review bilateral cooperation. Mr. Naidu will meet several other Qatari dignitaries during this visit. He will also address a business roundtable in Qatar. With Anand's report, this is Anita Anand for World News, All India Radio, New Delhi.
World Bank Chief David Malpass has warned that Russia-Ukraine conflict could cause a global recession as the price of food, energy and fertilizers are increasing exponentially. He also said a series of coronavirus lockdowns in China are adding to concerns about a slowdown. Mr. Malpass told on Thursday that Germany, the biggest economy in Europe and the fourth largest in the world, is suffering due to high prices of energy. He said developing countries are also being affected by shortages of fertilizer, food and energy. This is the latest warning by the World Bank over the rising risk the world economies may face in days to come. Earlier last month, World Bank cut its global economic growth forecast for this year by almost a full percentage point to 3.2%.
The World Economic Forum, WEF, will revert to January for its 2023 annual meeting in the Swiss ski resort of Davos after moving to the spring for the first time due to the coronavirus pandemic. After a hiatus of more than 2 years, the annual gathering this year attracted a mix of global political and business leaders. By returning to the start of the year, the privately funded WEF will hope to regain its place where the global agenda for the months ahead is discussed and sometimes even set. A WEF official said that an event is scheduled for January 15 to 20th in 2023, provided that there are no problems as a result of COVID or other issues. This year's event held between May 22nd to 26th. Global leaders, including from India, participated in the international event. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal led the Indian delegation. The delegation also included Health and Family Welfare Minister Mansukh Mandviya, Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, Chief Ministers and Senior Ministers of Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka and Telangana. The final day of the meeting was marked by a demonstration by activists calling for more urgent action on climate change. The protest echoed previous months at the last WEF meeting in January 2020 when Swedish activist Greta Thunberg warned participants that the world was still on fire. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on gains for India at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. In conversation are A.K. Bhattacharya, economic analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
The theme for the 4-day World Economic Forum ending today is History at a Turning Point. According to WEF President, the 2022 meet has happened at a time when the world is seeing more geopolitical and economic turmoil than in decades. Mr. Bhattacharya, what are the key issues on the agenda for World Economic Forum 2022? And what, according to you, are the chief takeaways for India from this year's meeting?
Well, this year's meeting is more important than the many other past meetings of the World Economic Forum at Davos. The number one is that this is being held not at the usual time, at the end of January every year. Because of the COVID pandemic, this meeting is being held in the month of May, of course in Davos, in the Alpine resorts. Now, the subject, as you said, the history at a turning point, government policies and business strategies, has actually come at a time when the global economic and political shifts are too obvious to be missed by anybody. It is not just because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also because of the global reordering of priorities, reordering of the economic and political powers that have actually made everybody look afresh at one's priorities and focus areas. There is a complexity of geopolitical risks which obviously have been triggered by Russia and China. There are issues about how the global economy probably is facing a recessionary situation where particularly the central bankers and economists are a little worried. The Chinese experience of the way they dealt with the COVID has led to a thinking that the supply chains have continued to remain disrupted. So this World Economic Forum's annual meeting has actually brought the global attention back to these issues and how the world can come out of this situation with fewer scars and more positive issues to look forward to.
Karnataka Pavilion and Tamilnadu Pavilion at the World Economic Forum saw brisk activity. For the benefit of our listeners, can you tell us something about the kind of interaction which takes place at these pavilions, at various meetings under the aegis of WEF? What are the various categories of participants and speakers?
You are right. WEF is not just about the national government going to these annual meetings and letting the world know what the government is doing in terms of tackling the economic policy challenges. But this year, these state pavilions, also like in the past, and these state pavilions actually bring out the messages from the subnational governments. In this area, what has happened is that Andhra Pradesh has taken a big lead. They have actually signed as many as 3 agreements to expand one of them is to expand its pellet plant capacity, and they are holding discussions with various other leaders. ArcelorMittal, Nippon Steel has actually confirmed proposed investments of 1,000 crore in Vizag. So the Andhra Pradesh in particular has actually taken the lead in inviting more investments into the country, in the state. So it is not just a question of the central government going out and presenting its economic policy package and seeking more global collaborations and investments into the country. But there are also, state governments like Andhra Pradesh who have made a successful foray to World Economic Forum at this summit.
In financial year 2021-22, India attracted a record $83.57 billion of foreign direct investment. What are the crucial factors that the government needs to keep its focus on so that India continues to be an attractive destination for foreign investors?
The environment for the global investment has got a little problematic in the sense that the investment flows have slowed down a bit in the current year, particularly because of the Ukraine-Russia's conflict and also money being sucked out of the system by the central banks across the world, interest rates going up. So therefore, foreign investment will also take a hit in the current year, in my assessment. In view of this, the need for attracting more foreign investment becomes even more significant. The one factor that the Indian government must keep in mind in this situation is how to ensure that the ease of doing business continues to remain favorable, and that is something which can be achieved by ushering in more reforms in the areas, particularly in the factor markets like labor. The government had come out with agricultural reforms. Unfortunately, they had to be rolled back because of the agitation. So even in the land reforms, and of course, these production-linked incentive schemes have been created for as many as 13 sectors, but a lot of foreign companies are actually interested in taking advantage of the scheme, getting those incentives for increasing investments and production. So I think on the whole, the investment scenario will depend a lot on these facilities, on the ease of doing business in the country, but most importantly, the manner in which infrastructure investments will take place. And so far, the infrastructure investment space has been maintained. The government has taken a lead in making sure that investments do not suffer any slowdown, particularly in the area of creating capital assets. So these are factors which will help attract more foreign investment at a time when global flows of capital will probably see a slowdown.
So do you think an international forum like WEF helps the country to convey these advantages to foreign investors, the advantage of a stable policy regime, a robust reforms agenda, including the PLI scheme, and a business-friendly environment? You feel this is the right forum to convey all this?
Among the World Economic Forum is certainly high-profile forum or a platform where global leaders, not just from the governments or subnational governments, from banking community, from the think tanks, from various multilateral institutions, they all get together and in an environment which is not encumbered by any formalities, they can actually mix, and accessibility is not an issue in such meetings. So it is an opportunity for any global leader, including those from India, to convey what is happening in India and tell the Indian story and understand what is happening in the other countries where India can export more. Indian exports did very well last year, and it is important that how Indian exports continue to maintain its current pace. So for that, you need those global linkages to be renewed and expanded. So therefore, World Economic Forum is an opportunity where the Indian government, the state governments, Indian businesses, remember a large contingent of Indian business leaders are also in Davos for this meeting, where you can actually attract people to come to India. You can look for new markets, develop networks, which are very, very useful in enhancing your growth prospects.
Will supply chain disruptions due to the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the pandemic, including China's zero-COVID policy, prompt global companies to build up resilience and expand their manufacturing base to countries with welcoming business environment and a stable policy regime like India, and give a boost to Make in India for the world?
To an extent, the supply chain disruptions in China can be seen as an opportunity for India to occupy a space that may be vacated by the Chinese economy. But at the same time, that opportunity can be exploited only if the Indian policy environment becomes more attractive, Indian trade policy becomes more attractive. Remember that a supply chain advantages can be availed only if a country has a very proactive, open, exchange rate determined and not tariff determined trade policy. So if India wishes to take advantage of the supply chain disruptions in a positive way by drawing more investments or establishing new trade linkages, it will be important to make the country's trade policy and investment policies, particularly in some sectors where we have seen some foreign investors pulling out of the country. So that will be very, very critical because India is relatively a large market and a lot of foreign companies would like to look at India as an alternative to the Chinese economy because of the supply chain disruptions there. So it is an opportunity and it will depend on how well India and Indian business leaders take advantage of this opportunity.
Mr. Bhattacharya, thank you so much for this enlightening discussion.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio, giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says the West will fail in its attempts to isolate Russia and face growing economic problems. Speaking on Thursday via video link to members of the Eurasian Economic Forum, President Putin said Russia was not going to shut itself off from international cooperation. The forum includes several ex-Soviet nations. He said that trying to isolate Russia is impossible, utterly unrealistic in the modern world, and those who try to do it primarily hurt themselves. The Russian leader cited growing economic challenges in the West, including inflation unseen in 40 years, growing unemployment, rupture of supply chains, and the worsening of global crisis in such sensitive spheres as food. The Russian leader said this is a serious thing that will have an impact on the entire system of economic and political relations. He lambasted the West for seizing Russian reserves, saying that the theft of others' assets never brought any good. Finland Prime Minister Sanna Marin visited Ukraine on Thursday amid Russian military action. She held an official meeting with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv. The 36-year-old Finnish president met Zelensky in the presidential palace before heading to other places in the country. Mr. Zelensky thanked the government and the people of Finland for their unconditional support. He posted pictures of their meeting on Instagram and Telegram on Thursday afternoon. Marin also visited Bucha on Thursday, according to local media Gazeta, Segodnya ZN and Ukrainska Pravda.
Japanese and United States forces have conducted a joint fighter jet flight over the Sea of Japan in an apparent response to a joint air patrol by Chinese and Russian warplanes over the Sea of Japan, the East China Sea and the West Pacific Ocean on Tuesday when the leaders of Quad countries held their in-person summit in Tokyo. Japan's defense ministry said on Thursday that 4 F-15 fighter jets from the Japan Air Self-Defense Force Chitos Air Base and 4 F-16s from U.S. Misawa Air Base, both in northern Japan, flew together on Wednesday afternoon for training. It was meant to confirm the combined capabilities of the two militaries and further strengthen the Japan-US alliance, according to the ministry. Chinese Ministry of Defense on Tuesday said that China and Russia conducted routine joint strategic air patrols on Tuesday. China's cabinet, led by Premier Li Keqiang, held an unprecedented video conference with more than 1 lakh participants to bolster the economy battered by the country's stringent COVID-19 restrictions. The unexpected video teleconference by the State Council was attended by officials across provincial and city, among others. According to state media, Premier Li Keqiang urged authorities to earnestly implement policies in sustaining jobs, reducing unemployment, and keep the economy operating in a reasonable range.
In Senegal, 11 newborn babies have died in a hospital fire in the western city of Pavilion. Senegal President Macky Sall tweeted that the fire occurred at the maternity department of Mame Abdul Aziz Saib Dabakh Hospital. He expressed his deepest sympathy to mothers and families of the victims. Initial reports suggest the fire was caused by a short circuit, according to politicians. Pakistan's ousted Prime Minister Imran Khan disbanded a protest march by supporters on Thursday after clashes with police outside Parliament the previous evening. However, he warned that they would return unless an election was called within 6 days. Khan has said that the confidence vote that toppled him and ushered in the coalition government led by Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif last month was the result of a US conspiracy, and he is demanding a fresh election to show he has national support.
Bangladesh will conduct the first digital census of the country between June 15th and 21st this year. It will involve more than 370,000 enumerators, 64,000 supervisors and 4,500 officials. Inaugurating a program for training of census officials in Dhaka on Wednesday, Finance Minister A.H.M. Mustafa Kamal urged the people to make the 6th population and housing census of the country a success by providing the required information to the enumerators. Our special correspondent from Dhaka has filed this report.
After a delay of more than a year and a half due to the corona pandemic, the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics had initiated the process to conduct the Population and Housing Census 2022. The data will be collected using Geographic Information System-based digital maps from the field level. Enumerators will use the Computer-Assisted Personal Interviewing (CAPI) method to capture data on the digital tabs. The government has procured approximately 4 lakh digital tabs for this purpose. Detailed information on demographic and socio-economic aspects of the country's population will be collected during the census. Data on the number of households, drinking water availability, toilet and power facility, source of fuel for cooking, remittance, age of household members, gender, marital status, income and education, among other things, will be collected during the census. This is the 6th population and housing census going to be conducted by the government of Bangladesh. The country's first population and housing census was held in 1974, followed by the second census in 1981, the third one in 1991, the fourth census in 2001, while the fifth census was conducted in 2011. Rajesh Jha, AIR News, Dhaka.
In Asia Cup hockey tournament, India qualified for the Super 4 stage with a huge 16-0 win over hosts Indonesia at the GBK Sports Complex Hockey Stadium in Jakarta. Defending champions India needed to beat hosts Indonesia by a huge margin for advancing to the knockout stage of the Asia Cup. India conceded a last-minute goal to draw 1-1 against Pakistan in their tournament opener before going down to Japan 2-5.
In French Open tennis, the Indo-Dutch pair of Rohan Bopanna and Mathieu Middelkoop today defeated A. Goludev and F. Martin in the second round of men's doubles event by 6-4, 6-3. Rafael Nadal has advanced to the third round of the tournament after securing an easy win against local Cotin Mute. The Spanish tennis star defeated the French wildcard 6-3, 6-1, 6-4. In men's doubles event, India's Ramkumar Ramanathan and American Hunter Reese lost to the pair of W. Koolhof and N. Skupski the second round by 2-6, 3-6. In the mixed doubles, 10th-seeded Sania Mirza with her Croatian partner Ivan Dodig defeated German-Mexican pair of Laura Sigmund and Santiago Gonzalez in the first round by 7-6, 6-2. Now let us have a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. First, we have a look at the press reports on China. Associated Press writes China wants 10 small Pacific nations to endorse a sweeping agreement covering everything from security to fisheries, and what one leader wants is a game-changing bid by Beijing to wrest control of the region. CNN writes Chinese President Xi Jinping defended his country's human rights record on Wednesday, telling a visiting UN Human Rights Commissioner there is no need for preachers to boss around other countries.
Now let's have a look at the press reports on Nepal. According to the Republica, the federal government has announced plans to construct a provincial airport in Surkhet and connect Humla with national road network of the country for the upcoming fiscal year. The Rising Nepal reports that the Indian Chargé d'Affaires for Nepal, Namgya C. Khampa, has expressed Indian government's readiness to collaborate for the prosperity of Gandaki province. Now let's have a look at the press reports on Pakistan. The ANI report says fishing has stopped working in Gwadar city of Pakistan. The Dawn writes the International Monetary Fund on Wednesday emphasized upon Pakistan the urgency of removing fuel and energy subsidies to achieve program objectives. And now let's have a look at the press reports on Bangladesh. The Election Commission of Bangladesh has started the process for the registration of new political parties in the country, reports Daily Star. The interested political parties have to apply for registration to the Election Commission till August 29th. And now a quick look at the headlines once again. India's biggest drone festival, Bharat Drone Mahotsav 2022, kicks off in New Delhi on Friday. 70 exhibitors to display drones in two-day event. BRICS nations set up a joint commission on space cooperation to jointly build a virtual constellation of remote sensing satellites. Vice President of India M. Venkaiah Naidu to visit Gabon, Senegal and Qatar from 30th of May to 7th of June. World Bank Chief David Malpass warns that a Russia-Ukraine conflict could cause a global recession as price of food, energy and fertilizers are increasing exponentially. World Economic Forum 2022 meet concludes. Next meet to be held between January 15th to 20th next year. Russian President Vladimir Putin says West will fail in its attempts to isolate Russia. In French Open, Indo-Dutch pair of Rohan Bopanna and Mathieu Middelkoop defeat A. Goludev and F. Martin in second round of men's doubles event, while duo of Sania Mirza and Ivan Dodig beat Laura Sigmund and Santiago Gonzalez in mixed doubles. India trounced Indonesia 16-0 in last group match of Asia Cup in hockey in Jakarta. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Georgia. And with that, we end this bulletin.